Chapter 12, The Iron Enclave, Jeffrey Epstein, and the Ultimate Compromise. The saga of Jeffrey Epstein represents the ultimate evolution of the Iron Grips network, a nexus where global finance, political power, and organized criminal exploitation fused into a protected structure, the Lucky Enclave, that operated above the law for decades. By the 1990s, the network no longer needed a hidden assassin. It merely needed control over the financial, legal, and political systems that shielded its most valuable assets. The financial and political Launchpad. Epstein began his career as a broker for Bear Stearns, but soon moved to independent wealth management, gaining the financial legitimacy necessary to engage with the world's elite. His crucial break came with a massive financial relationship with Leslie Wexner, the billionaire CEO of L Brands, Victoria's Secret. The shady, though legally executed, transfer of vast sums of money and property from Wexner to Epstein granted him the legitimate capital required to build his criminal infrastructure. Operating among Wexner's associates, Epstein began preying on models, establishing the direct link between his financial legitimacy and his criminal enterprise. This financial foundation was quickly coupled with political penetration. The Clinton Nexus. The relationship with William Clinton began early, with Epstein making an astonishing 17 visits to the White House in 1993 alone, along with political donations that secured immediate, high-level access. This was not a passing acquaintance. The relationship deepened, culminating in Clinton taking at least 26 extended trips on Epstein's private jet around the world beginning in 2001. These intimate, long-haul trips confirmed Clinton's status as a key, compromised asset within the network. The law enforcement blindness. Despite federal law enforcement receiving tips about Epstein as early as the late 1980s, the system failed to act. In 1996, victim Maria Farmer explicitly told the FBI about Epstein, yet no action was taken. While William Clinton himself may not have hung up the phone, vast numbers of compromised individuals within his Justice Department and the FBI ensured the warnings were ignored. The 2007 fix, the NPA and State-Sanctioned Crime. In 2007, the system finally moved on Epstein. Federal law enforcement in South Florida had built an indisputable case, boasting 60 victims willing to testify and a comprehensive 60-count federal indictment for child sex trafficking and abduction into slavery. This was the moment the Iron Grips apparatus was deployed. George Bush's Justice Department, led by U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, intervened and executed a monumental act of obfuscate and obstruct. It traded the 60-count federal indictment for a secret Non-Prosecution Agreement, NPA, resulting in a mere 13 months in a county jail for Epstein. This was not just a lenient deal. It was a state-engineered act of silencing and protection that mirrored the fixed outcomes of the past. Violating the law. The NPA was signed in secret, a direct violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, CVRA, because the government deliberately failed to inform any of the dozens of victims that they were letting Epstein go. The system of immunity. The NPA granted full legal immunity not just to Epstein and his 4 named co-conspirators, but to any potential co-conspirators, effectively throwing a blanket of federal protection over the entire network of elite associates. The work release travesty. The vast majority of his 13-month sentence was served on work release. The government was fully aware that Epstein did not have a real job, yet they permitted him to leave for 12 hours a day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, often returning to his mansion, the very tool he had used to run his criminal network. Palm Beach sheriff's deputies assigned to monitor him would sometimes watch the door to ensure no one disturbed Epstein while he was with his child sex slave victims. This willful suppression of a federal indictment with dozens of victims, dozens of stories, and the potential to unravel the entire network is completely inexplicable until viewed through the lens of the Iron Grip playbook. This was organized crime, operating with the total cooperation of the U.S. government, granting him a legal shield that was precisely the type of immunity secured by Lucky Luciano years before. The engineered silence of 2019. Once released, Epstein now had legal immunity from federal prosecution under the terms of the NPA. He immediately expanded his slave trade into what was likely one of the largest trafficking rings ever, buying at least one island and dedicating it to his crimes. Multiple victims confirm William Clinton was on that island, alongside numerous other world leaders, including Prince Andrew. After a decade of impunity, New York State prosecutors found a legal workaround to the legal shield Acosta had built, and Epstein was arrested in 2019. The events that followed were a final, desperate act of eliminate and silence, orchestrated while Donald Trump was president. Controlling the narrative. The entire world was watching the Epstein story, yet he was immediately taken off of suicide watch. His cellmate was removed, the guards famously fell asleep, and of the 147 cameras in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, the only 2 that were not working were the ones pointed at Epstein's cell door. The final fix. The official ruling of suicide was quickly made, and the body was destroyed, despite significant controversy over the medical examiner's findings, with some sources claiming the evidence pointed strongly to strangulation and murder. The final confirmation of the network's power lay in the career of the man who facilitated his freedom. Alex Acosta was later confirmed as Secretary of Labor. The man who could have stopped Epstein was put in command of the entire American labor force. Furthermore, the revelation that Ken Starr, Clinton's antagonist, was an intimate associate of Epstein, and Epstein's own claims of being Donald Trump's best friend reveal that the Iron Grip's compromise and control is total, bipartisan, and absolute. The collapse of Bear Stearns and the engineered disaster. The Iron Grip's methodology, eliminate and silence, was not limited to inconvenient people. It extended to institutions that held dangerous knowledge. The saga of Jeffrey Epstein demonstrates how the financial elite were protected, and the collapse of the investment bank Bear Stearns serves as a potent example of how inconvenient institutional memory can be erased. The disappearing evidence. Jeffrey Epstein's career began at Bear Stearns, and his subsequent independent firm would have continued to interact with and be known by the bank's executives and compliance teams. Bear Stearns, therefore, held an immense amount of potentially compromising documentation and institutional knowledge regarding Epstein's early rise and the shadowy origins of his capital. The confluence of events is staggering. In 2007, Epstein was federally indicted in Florida. In 2008, as the scandal over his secret Non-Prosecution Agreement and state-sanctioned impunity was beginning to brew, Bear Stearns became one of the first major financial institutions to collapse during the onset of the 2008 financial crisis, effectively disappearing from the financial landscape. Just as the death of Vince Foster removed the legal team's internal paper trail, the sudden collapse and absorption of Bear Stearns destroyed the institutional memory and documentation of one of Epstein's primary professional anchor points. This corporate demise, timed exactly when Epstein was in the most hot water of his career, mirrors the pattern of evidence destruction employed throughout the Iron Grip's playbook. The engineered opportunity. This systemic failure provides a crucial bridge to the network's ultimate ambition. The Iron Grip's history is built on exploiting crises, whether they are political, the JFK assassination leading to the Vietnam drug pipeline, or social, the crack epidemic funding covert wars. The complete economic collapse of 2008, while publicly blamed on complex market factors, can be viewed through the lens of the Lucky Enclave as a crisis that was not merely accidental, but an engineered disaster. Chaos on the scale of a global financial collapse creates unprecedented opportunities for those in the inner circle. Massive capital concentration. It allows protected players to buy distressed assets, acquire weakened competitors, and consolidate market share at pennies on the dollar. Political distraction. It diverts all government and media attention away from compromised individuals like Epstein and onto the immediate financial emergency. New immunities. It sets the stage for massive government bailouts, effectively transferring taxpayer money into the hands of the financial elite who caused the crisis, completing the ultimate cycle of exploit and profit. The collapse of Bear Stearns was a small, crucial step in this process. It served as both an act of evidence destruction and the first major tremor that signaled the coming engineered chaos, a cascade of events tailor-made for the next generation of the Iron Grip to exploit.